My name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra Woden. This is chapter 13. 1-3. Woden waved at them as they left, and they waved back, and all well that ends well, as the saying goes, and all that nonsense. And I was a bit disappointed that it did not turn into a bloodbath, and turning to look at my Woden asked, "And did you get visited by the pesky mage today?" "Not today, but a couple of days ago," explained Mai, "and there's something afoot in the tower. There's no point in worrying about it, and I saw this magic ritual, and I'm going to put a cap on it to keep the douche from causing mischief," said Woden. "And what are you going to do about it?" asked Bryce, coming over to stand by Woden. "Just a little summoning, nothing too special," said Woden, reaching into her pocket to bring out a clear snow globe. And she shook it a little, and she placed it on top of the altar, and she gestured for some room, and we all stepped back a bit. And Woden started stomping on the floor with her feet while she rose her hands up and started wiggling them around in a fashion that reminded me of the movements of a spider. And eventually a red ribbon appeared, and she held it with both hands, and she stretched it till it was around us. And with a weirdly floaty effect and a scent like pine cones combined with cinnamon. And the crystal ore eventually manifested a tiny fairy-like creature with blonde curly hair, red and white wings, a blue flower desk, a pacifier, and a woodless graphite pencil. Removing her pacifier, the fairy asked, "And what seems to be the trouble?" "Nothing much, just some dude stalking and taking people's magical talents, and some folk has seen the ritual as well, so I thought it would be easier to do something about the spell instead of killing the magic user casting it," said Woden with her telepathy. "And I was more in tune with Woden's thoughts because we had a covenant, and the others who did not belong to the group just saw Woden staring at the fairy and the fairy staring back. The fairy closed her eyes and saw everything Woden had just endured, and with these and other observations regarding the preparations of the spells and components, the fairy had everything needed to seal it. And she placed her binky back on, and she started dancing on top of the arrows of the globe. And she stopped and faded away when the last fake snow fell, and the magic sealing ritual was an offshoot from an ancient spell, and a vessel was chosen, and within it all the magic pertaining to a species or whatever was here within it, and as long as the vessel lived, all the magic of the world would be contained within it. And the strange fairy was one of such vessels, and she differed from the original host insomuch as she could not pick the flavor of what she took. And she also had a limited amount of magic she could bind for good, and as such it was better used for specific spells and their variations than entire schools of magic. And I was brought out of my thoughts when I saw Ethel starting to move, and I soon realized that the group was returning to a temporary base of operations. And I hovered beside Woden and I asked her, "Is it okay for Bryce and that other shit to see your sealing magic ritual singing?" "It's fine. Fairies only work with familiar faces, and they will not answer to the call of strangers. And in the old days they would have been a bit more curious, and now that they finally internalized the whole stranger danger motif, they don't no longer deal with strangers," said Woden. "And you can't go your entire life avoiding people you don't know," retorted Bryce. "One can certainly try if they have a mind to do so," said Woden, frowning. "How would you go about it if you won't indulge me?" asked Maya, coming to walk beside Woden. "It is easy to do so on the ground. Just find yourself a cave or dig a deep enough hole and bury yourself with whatever you need to survive indefinitely. And a couple of powerful chumps in the past have done so. These sleepers, as we like to call them, do not take kindly to being found out, and after avoiding people for so long, they are hostile to any intelligent person they see. Still, there are some notable exceptions," said Woden. "Such as?" I asked. "You, for example," said Woden, pointing at me. "Is that so?" I said, not too impressed. "It is so, but it's all loose classification, like calling a bunch of creatures that drink milk and have whiskers mammals," said Woden. "Ah, so the other than sleeping, then the overwhelming power and all that irrationality, and there really is not so much that binds us together," I said thoughtfully. "You do not seem that powerful to me," said Bryce, looking at me. "Let not my petty form fool you. I am far more ancient than any god in this world, and before there were planets, there was I said, pointing at my smiling face. Yes, and then you got kicked out of paradise because human women were hot, blah, blah, blah," said Woden, downplaying my life history, though when put in perspective, it sounds like a very foolish need to lose so much over such feeble, fragile creatures. And still, it is quite fashionable to blame women for everything bad that has ever happened to anyone, and the fact of the matter remains that women have and will always be far more interesting than men. And dragons, demons, fairies, trolls, elves, aliens, and many other creatures will attest to this fact. And woman then took my journal and read it over the top, and laughing she returned it, and I fidgeted out of it, feeling somewhat sheepish. And Woden asked, and what are you writing down everything? Because I do not want to forget, and when I awoke from my sleep, the only thing I could remember was what I had written down on paper, and everything else was a bit of a haze, I explained. Mine is a little bit like that too, and even with all that fancy technology, her memory becomes more concrete if she writes it down in some form instead of having it to picture everything in her head. The morning sun felt cool on our backs, and there was a slight breeze with a bit of humidity, and water droplets were condensing on top of the flowers, and for some reason, I felt like it was going to be a good day. Then again, reading my own writings over the top has made me tremble a little. And regardless of how nice things seem to appear, there is always something or someone who overacts our pudding. And looking over my shoulder, Ethel said, I do not think you're using the phrase correctly. Since when are you British? I asked, pushing her away. Is British a type of demon? Asked Ethel. To some people, yes, said Woden, chuckling. We all grew silent to stare at the sunrise, and the sky was particularly darling today, with its rosy-colored flaming clouds that resembled a ripple created by water droplets, and there was an arbitrary cloud that resembled a T-Rex, and looking at the Woden asked, Do you have any dinosaurs in this world? What are dinosaurs? Asked Bryce, growing curious. They are like a type of lizard, and some with feathers, while others have big heads and small hands, I answered, and I added, they were pretty common back in the old days, and very amusing creatures with particular ancient souls, and one day they were almost wiped out by a meteor or a giant flaming rock from the sky. And the ones that managed to survive left to another world. And Bryce was about to say more, but Matt interrupted by asking, Who the hell are you people talking to? The narrator, by the looks of things, they weren't pointing in my direction. Narrator, surely you just said, Maya, laughing. Only a little, said Warren, putting her index fingers and thumb real close together to even the straight point. And by now we could see the town with a silly, let me look back for a second. Ah, yes, the name was Arumbior. And Maya, seeing the town, she said, well, this is where we part ways, and I am sorry we could not give you the hot welcome we intended. I'm not sorry, seeing the plans that you have made for me and my companions, said Warren, pretending to know more than she did. You have seen far too many places, little girl, and not all wishes are killers, said Maya, laughing. Only the good ones, said Woden, smiling. And Maya's smile contorted into a sneer, and she seemed about to say more, but she decided to leave things nice for a change. And with any luck, we would not be importuned by their presence. And speaking of annoying new people, Bryce was still lingering beside Woden. And looking towards the town, Woden said, well, goodbye then, Bryce, and you should go home before your mother comes and messes up my newly planted garden looking for you. I don't know, said Bryce, taking out his gun and putting it away in a hidden pistol holster beneath his decorative cape. Jeez, your dad tried to... I'm sorry about your situation with your dad, said Woden. Bryce was quiet for a second, and he didn't seem in a mood to talk about it. And Woden also seemed thoughtful as well, and then she nodded and ran away towards the forest to get away from the awkward situation that her sentence had said. Still, to be fair, I thought that the little bastard already knew. Oh well. And I lost sight of Woden for a bit, and I was not in a particular hurry to catch up to her. And Etta, who was near me, said, well, you truly are a demon. Thank you, though I fear Woden would not be too pleased with me, I said, somewhat deflated. I doubt it. She knows who you are and what you are, and to expect anything else, or to desire for fire not to burn, or for the mountain lion not to be meat, said Etta, who seemed to have a newfound respect for me. And eventually we saw Woden watering her garden, and she was using a watering pail that is very light application of water. And aside from watering tools, she was dampening the leaves, and she would pick up the leaves by hands, and then when she was done, she started to remove the weeds beyond her garden. And it seemed to me that she wanted to expand her arable land. And then beside her, I said, do you need some help? Said Woden. I will get the fork, just you wait here, I said, getting up. And I came and brought the gardening fork, and I placed it near Woden, who nodded and continued to dig and pull weeds with her bare hands. And I then said, want to talk about it? Said Woden, and her eyes grew glassy and then turned cyan, and this was a sign that informed me that she was not home. and her hands were resting on her sides, and when she was out of it, I made a motion to take one of the strands of her black hair, and she mechanically brushed it aside. Esther noticed a strange behavior and eye color in Woden, and Woden's eyes were restful but not closed, and it was the type of look one saw in a meditating type of person, or maybe somebody who was daydreaming. And Esther asked me, what's this all about? Is she crazy or something? A little, but it has nothing to do with her current state of mind, and she's probably mentally conversing with someone who is much nicer or more confident than yours truly, I said, pulling the weeds. And it isn't my fault that I don't care about the lives and feelings of petty humans, and I thought she did not care by the way she speaks of them. And people can say a lot of nonsense and then are different to their words when the opportunity arises, explained Ethel. And I have seen many times, and even people can at other times be compelled to act in a way completely out of character. I don't know, I just don't want to buy this whole brewing thing to become the general theme, I said, and if she cares about the bastard, she should magic him happy or use her mental powers to depress his negative emotions, and one and her people are quite adept at repressing negative emotions, though at times I think that they might be acting a little bit too manic for my taste. Nobody's perfect, said Ethel. And Woden then blinked twice, and she nodded, and getting up, she went into the hut, and taking out an elegant piece of vellum and scissors, she made 40 equally sized round cards, and like all other people from her world, she had a phobia of squares, and would avoid them as much as possible, and this was the only explanation for her fixation on circles. On the other hand, she rendered a beautiful flower item or person, and she made the cards featuring Bruin and his family as well as other people that the man knew. And when the front had dried, she wrote with ink on the other side of the card, and the writing spiraled into a circle, and there were the usual cheesy happy words of encouragement that makes my kind curl up. And when this exercise in futility was completed, she placed the cards inside a wooden box, and giving it to me, she said, see that the Bruin gets it, and why do I have to go, I want? You broke it, you fixed it, said Woden castily. Fine, I said, flying in the direction of town. And I flapped my wings quite earnestly to rid myself of this task as soon as possible, and I caught Bryce just as he was entering his father's room. And the man was asleep silently with his hands bound together and his feet tied to the post of the bed. What alone, I said to Bryce, and here, Woden made you some happy cards, and whenever your stupid dad feels down, show him one and read the back of it, and it should brighten his spirits or something like it. Why didn't Woden deliver this herself? Asked Bryce. Because she tends to avoid places tied to bad memories, and if they build up enough, she might leave this town for good, I explained, and avoid negative emotions and don't make it about you when you speak with him, and happy thoughts and all about it until you love him or whatever, and if you think it makes you sound unmanly. Said Bryce in mimicry of the sound that Woden made when she was sulking. Well, I'm done. If you will be so kind as to never revisit Woden, I will be forever in your debt, and if you honor this simple request, I will come to your help if you call me. I left the manor and breathed a sigh of relief, and I hope that this little extra bribe will be enough to keep Bryce from pestering Woden once and for all. And as I hover over the city, I couldn't help but catch a pungent smell of burnt lumber. And the segment of the forest that had been burned looked particularly ugly indeed, so bleak and dismal this day seemed to me. And everything and everyone I have ever met as of lately have been terrible. And I don't know why this whole brewing business has affected Woden so, and she doesn't bat an eye when she kills or sees someone dying. And why would this be any different? The end result is still the same. And I found Woden washing her hands on a basin, and she had just concluded her little gardening project, and she was making her way towards the kitchen when she stopped a moment, and then she said, am I missing something? There is a little something missing from your routine, I suppose, I said to her, seeing if she would figure it out. And looking up and nodding, she made her way towards the nearest bath of water, and ever since she had moved into the woods, she had not performed any serious rituals of libation, and she had the bad habit of forgetting the essentials. And after briefly concluding her mental math, she found a cool spring water, and she removed all before entering into the cool stream, and then she started to wash her hair with liquid soap. And moving a couple of ways, I went to the stream and took a nice sip of water, and it was bubbly, and it reminded a bit of the taste of mineral water. Then again, this could be literally mineral water, and taking this into consideration, I went back home and flew back with the water sinks to fill. And I am always a sucker for mineral water, and what I miss myself as thus, Ethel sat down on a rug and started splashing her tiny feet. And aside from the morning unpleasantness, everything was so far shaping nicely, and getting up I went to find some wood, and I knocked on it 3 times to keep myself from jinxing the situation. And I heard a rustling on the bushes, and I heard a loud hoarse voice yelling, "Heathen, you have defiled a sacred stream." "Oh, for the love, oh, for God's sake, if it's not one thing, it's another," I said, frowning. And coming closer to see the source of the voice, I found that the douche was not referring to Woden, but to another fellow, and a skinny peasant lad was getting a royal whipping, and he had apparently fished from the sacred stream or whatever. And I gestured with my hand over my face of the man to see if he could see me, and Eto then did the same, and since he could not see either of us, the man was blind as far as spirit was concerned. In other words, he could not tell the difference between what was sacred and what was truly profane. And as such, he had not earthly business talking about defilement or whatnot, and as far as I could tell with my demon powers, the stream was as mundane as most bodies of water. Mind you, it was a sublimely handsome stream. Positively one of the prettiest ones I had ever seen in all the millenniums that I have ever existed. And while amused, Eto returned to sit by the stream, and Woden asked Eto, "Was someone there?" "Just a peeper, nothing to be concerned about," said Eto. And one of them started to create her own bubbles with her mouth, like when you sink your head in the water and they go like... And she then saw Master Highsucker in the floating carcass of the brat floating downstream upside down, and Woden then lowered her head and deep breath and deep beneath the waters and had a tiny tantrum. And when she came out, she swam downstream and she fetched the brat, and after giving him some basic CPR, the kid roused from his stupor, and he was bruised but otherwise more or less in one piece. And there was something familiar about this face, but I could not put my finger on it. And it was then when Woden said, "Dario, and what are you doing here?" "Who are you?" asked Dario. "It is me, Woden, the girl from the orphanage," said Woden. "You got big," said Dario. "Of course, people get taller over time," said Woden flatly. "It's barely been a couple of days," said Dario. "And for you perhaps, but for me, a lifetime has passed," said Woden, exaggerating. "Ha, very funny," said Dario, unconvinced. And Woden then proceeded to cure him once again, and once the pain was gone, Dario said, "And do you see an old man down by the river?" "I did not," said Woden, and she added, "I heard some rustling, and a couple of minutes later I saw you floating down the river upside down. What happened?" I was fishing to build food for my trip when up comes this old man saying I was defiling his sacred stream. And after giving me a good licking, I played dead and he sent me down the river. And the bad part is that I don't know how to swim, still it's in a better to drown than to be beaten to death," explained Dario. "My new house is down over there. I can take you there if you like, and it can be a good help for you while you gather enough supplies to find your treasure," explained Woden. "Sure, I will take you on," said Dario, and then he added, "I don't know why this happened to me. I was not aware that there was a sacred stream here, and if there was, the local priest would have mentioned it at some point or another. Maybe there is a crazy person living by the riverside," I suggested. Woden then said, "I will check up on the place later, and for now you need to get warm and eat a real meal, and you can pay me back when you get your treasure." "Okay, seems fair enough," said Dario flatly. And together with Dario we make our way back to the house or hut, and I was barely a stone's throw away from the stream, and I made a mental note of the place for future visits, and it seemed like a good place to just take a nap. And I always fancied that the noise of running water, and even if it would suffice to lull me into a prolonged sleep. And as for Woden and Dario, both were lost in their thoughts, and Woden was saying from time to time while Dario patted his shoulders and elbows in an attempt to get warmed. And not a light entered the ground level of the forest, and Woden's hut did a bit of sunshine for a couple of hours, and it was enough to grow some shade plants and herbs, and nothing too ambitious, but she supplemented with her alchemic use of fertilizer. And Dario looked at the garden over the top, and then he said, "I'm stuffed. What for breakfast?" "Have an egg," said Woden. "Good, I will take this," said Dario, looking through the garden. And Woden brought out to the table and placed 2 chairs. And Ethel and I had a dogged, dejected, sour look on our face, and inside the kitchen Woden made our meals first, and since I was in the mood for a serious type of something, she made me muesli. And it was made of rolled out oats and walnuts, lotus seeds, pomegranate seeds, cherry seeds, and some raisins she found in the pantry. And she added some goat milk and cherries for good measure, and the mix was somewhat quirky, and not suited for beings whose constitution could not handle cherry seeds. And overall, it was somewhat sour but refreshing. And for Esther, she made a millet porridge with goat milk, and she added some cinnamon over the top, and Esther was good to go. And while we ate our meal, I heard Dario saying, "Where's my food? I'm hungry." "If you're not too keen on waiting, you're always welcome to your lot again by the river," said Woden caustically. "Fine," said Dario, pouting. For Dario, Woden made 2 poached eggs, and she cooked 2 pieces of bacon and toast, and she presented the food to Dario, who eyed the eggs with suspicion. And Woden, taking his plate away, said, "I'm not going to make you anything else." Give it to me," said Dario, getting up and taking the plate. And he ate quickly with the speed of one who is afraid that the food is going to walk away. And for herself, Woden made 2 boiled asparagus combined with poached and sliced prosciutto. And if I keep eating this well, I feel that I may transition into a gluttony demon. And looking through my previous work, I realized that I had paid a lot of attention to the food, and most people would jump to the feeding porches, and I admit a lot of nonsense too, like when Woden is caught up in her loo, and she finds me writing about it annoying, and I also admit her bad habit of picking her nose and putting it beneath the closet surface she can find. And she particularly likes to ruin carpets, and in the forest this little hobby of her doesn't matter much, and nature cleans itself up rather nicely. And when I'm ruminating on why I omitted from my writing, Woden concluded her quiet meal with Dario. And she too ate rather quickly, and this little habit ran in the family, and Woden's mother had suffered from hunger bouts when she was small, and the teacher at her school always insisted on forcing her to share her meals with the less fortunate. So while the less fortunate got fat, she was slowly starving away. And she stopped worrying about people taking her food when she got into the habit of eating quickly, and by the time they came to steal her food, she had already finished it. And during my early time with Woden, she would speak of her mother from time to time. And not as a person she was now, but back when she was a true flesh and blood human. And the old world that we belong to, and it now seems so distant, almost like it never truly existed. And my past life is like a far-off dream, and things that used to matter to me no longer seem important. And the only thing that I cherish, the only thing that matters to me at this very moment is having some pancake puppies. And I came to hover behind Woden with a target expression, and I said to her, "Can you make me some pancake puppies? I haven't eaten them in over 700 million years." And when I was quiet for a moment and getting up, she said to Dario, "I'm going to make something else for myself, and do you want anything? Some water would be appreciated, but do you have some wine?" asked Dario. "Wine doesn't mix well with eggs, but if you are itching to forgo your meal, I will more than happily oblige," said Woden, smiling coolly. I really do want some wine with my eggs," insisted Dario. "Alright, let's just leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless."